My expectation levels on West Ham are very, very low at the moment. And I think because of that, I've sort of accepted that we're going to lose Mohammed Kudus. I just think it's going to happen. I have no expectations for this season above and beyond. Do I expect us to avoid relegation? I do. As I've mentioned on numerous times, no point me repeating myself constantly, but I can't see any situation where we do, a big climb up the table, looking at the teams that are good, not just the traditional big teams, but the teams that are maybe batting above their weight. They look significantly better than we do. And I think it was probably really brought home to roost when I just recorded the preview for the Southampton game with Gio. And sometimes you say something and you catch yourself when you say it. And I said, with Southampton's new manager coming in, he would have looked at Fulham, then West Ham, and then Crystal Palace away, and he would have thought West Ham down the south coast. That's the winnable one. And I don't think that was sensationalistic. I think that's where we are, and that's how much we've fallen. And I think because of that, we can't have a realistic expectation of keeping players like Mohammed Kudus. When he came in, a lot of people were asking, why did you sign him up to this contract, this £85 million exit clause that he has in it? And it very much came back from the top people at the club. It was the only way we were going to get him to sign. So it was really a case of sign Mohammed Kudus with the £85 million exit clause, or don't sign him. Well, we signed him, and I think, probably quite reasonably at the time assumes, well, you know what, if he's going to turn out to be worth 85 million, we'll have signed a really, really good player, and we'll take the profit on him. Absolutely brilliant. But make no mistake about it, one of the reasons he joined us, and he said so in his very, very first interview that he did with the in-house media team, that he was joining West Ham because West Ham had just won the Conference League and we were playing European football. And both were true. We were in European football last season, obviously got knocked out by Leverkusen. But that's why he joined. So I think it's very, very difficult then to get to this season and find yourself in a situation where there's no European football. I think they might have taken it. And in many respects, what Nicholas Füllkrug said was accurate. I just don't want to hear him in particular saying it, because he's offered nothing to the club so far. He's done nothing. So he was acting like the victim. I think, well, hold on, no, it's West Ham that are the victims in this situation, because we spent all that money on you, plus big wages, and you've been not available. I felt Füllkrug should be coming back and saying, I'm gonna help West Ham qualify for Europe this season, not basically crying and saying that, I knew it was a risk when I signed. We didn't have European football this season, and it looks like we're not going to have it next season or the season after. But what he said was right in that sense. He wasn't right for saying it, but it was accurate. There you go. That's a better way of putting it. Kudus can have more grounds for complaint, I think, because he definitely signed on the dotted line on a season when we had European football. He was joining from Ajax, of course, and I think he thought that there were bigger and better times ahead. So it's obvious that he was going to leave, and I think Manchester City entering the fray is probably doing us a bit of a favour, really. Do I think Newcastle seriously did it? Well, I know we got the money. Eddie Howe said on Match of the Day the other day that he didn't have the money, but they do, because they had £60 million to spend on Mark Gahey and they didn't do it. Maybe they're just saving that and they're going to go back in for Gahey. Who knows? Certainly Liverpool got the money. Certainly Arsenal got the money, and Arsenal have shown that they can go and buy. Well, not just any player in January. I think they signed Trossard in January, so they can go and they can spend money if Mikel Arteta deems it necessary. But Manchester City entering the bidding, it helps. Well, it helped us with Declan Rice. I think without Manchester City bidding 85 million or 80 million, whatever it was, for Declan Rice, I don't think that Arsenal would have come back and bid the 105 million. It was at that point Manchester City held up their hand and said, you know what, that's it, we're out at that sort of money. You can just sort of forget it. Now, I don't think anyone's buying Kudus for 100 million. I don't. I think that's really, really important to say. And I think we're in such a situation that what we have to do is we've got a very, very simple decision. If we're going to turn down, let's use 75 million. I've plucked it straight out of the air. If we're going to turn down 75 million, we have to ask ourselves, do we think we're going to get, how much value do you think we're going to get out of him between now and the end of the season? Playing where he currently is, which is most of the time on the left-hand side, I don't think we've got a 75 million pound player on our hands. Last season, I think you could have argued we had an £85 million player on our hands, to a point where I thought if anybody comes in and buys him for 85 million, they might have even got him a bit cheap. Last season's Kudus is not this season's Kudus. I think that's really, really important to state that. I also think that when you're looking at trying to sell somebody like this, you're wondering how much more damage can be done to him in this season. He's already had a suspension, so he's not on his own at West Ham there. But basically, can his value depreciate further? And I think it can. I think certainly his value can depreciate more. At the moment, I think we've got a good asset on our hands. Now, how we would go and spend that money that we might get for him is, that's a completely different story. We are very, very capable of getting big money for Kudus and wasting it. But we're also capable of getting that money and spending it well, as can be evidenced by the signing of Kudus himself. We did really, really well with the Declan Rice sale, I think, in the end. But I used to make when Declan Rice was running his contract down, he had a 2-year option which we were going to exercise, and there was a point where some were saying we should take £50 million for Declan Rice. My argument was no, at that point it's just not worth it, because the value we were getting for him in terms of what he was delivering on the pitch was worth more than that. At this point, if we'd have exercised the option, he had 2.5 years left on his deal. Well, actually, I thought for 50 million, you get Declan Rice, you might qualify for Europe again. You could do any number of things. You could even argue that maybe with Declan Rice, that quite possibly we'd do even better in Europe last season. But obviously we wouldn't have had Kudus and people like that. But I do think what he was giving us on the pitch was worth it. So if you looked at it and thought, well, is having Declan Rice, even if we'd have kept him until the last year of his contract and we'd have got £30 million for him, was it worth keeping him around for a year and a half and basically sacrificing 20 million? You're damn right it was. He was that good. Now, I'm not saying Kudus isn't good, but I'm saying we were always getting the full value out of Rice. We had a superstar player who would impact almost every single game. That's not happening with Kudus. I know I'm choosing a bad time to make the example because he just scored a goal. But he didn't look great in that game, particularly in the first half. He just looked out of position, out of place. He's on the left-hand side of the pitch, and he just doesn't look good there. He looks like a man lost. There's no surprise to me that the moment the switch happened, Füllkrug went off, Bowen went through the middle, Kudus went on the right. Suddenly his pecker was up, and he was playing a different game, scored a goal. It was almost instant, wasn't it? I remember at the start of the season as well, he was asked. There was a lot of goodwill. There was a lot of positivity around the appointment of Julian Lopetegui in around the club. Whilst a lot of us didn't want him and he was nobody's choice, when he arrived at the club, he interviewed really well. That first probably month of media coming out from the club was excellent. It was really excellent. And I remember Kudus doing an interview. It was an in-house interview, and Kudus said that he was looking forward to playing with Lopetegui or playing under him, because his words were and I've got it almost exactly this. Lopetegui is the type of coach. It's a type of coach that knows how to train a right winger. Those were Kudus' words. So it was no doubt in my mind, this is somebody that saw himself as a right winger and then saw that he was having a coach who was going to coach him as a right winger, and therefore safe to assume that Kudus thought he was going to be playing right wing this season. Now, what happened thereafter, I don't know. But once you start factoring all that in, and he did say it, then you can look at the frustrations of it. Maybe you can understand how the two of them, maybe Lopetegui and Kudus, had a falling out and had a, let's just call it an argument, even if we're looking at its most diluted, the story, an argument between each other, which got quite heated. You can understand how maybe that happened. But when you look at it from Kudus' point of view, he's joined the club. For European football, we don't have it anymore. He's playing out of position. He's going to go. That's why I balanced it up in my mind. He's going. It's really what we can then do with the money. And I'd be lying if I said I was excited about that. I'm really not. I do feel in a state of flux. I feel, as I said this to Gio when we were doing our Patreon, what was it, on the player ratings. I think we've got a caretaker manager at the moment. Granted, he's not a caretaker manager that's here for 3 months, but we do have a caretaker manager here. We've got a caretaker manager on 12 months. I don't think anyone at the club's got any faith that he's the man to take us forward. So we're all sort of sat here in limbo, waiting. It's it's a waste, in many respects, a wasted season. We'll have some ups and downs, but ultimately nothing brilliant enough that's going to propel us up the league, and nothing drastic and horrific enough that's going to see us relegated. And I just feel like we're marking out time, and probably on the way to another rebuild. Anyway, so there you go. Before I go, what I just want to perhaps ask you to do, if you're still struggling to find somebody a Christmas present, a West Ham fan, then go and take a look at our Patreon page. So our Patreon page is a third Hammers Chat channel. We've got loads of additional content on there, loads of giveaways, loads of prizes, discounts to our online store, loads and loads of stuff, of extra West Ham stuff. If you've got a West Ham fan, you think, I can't get him another pair of West Ham socks, then go and check it out, because what we've got in the links in the description below is patreon.com/hammerschat, enables you to go on there and buy it for somebody else as a Christmas present. So go and check that out. If you want to get it for yourself, we've actually got a free trial as well, so you can go and check that out. And what it allows you to do is retrospectively go back, and you can look at all the historical videos, all the stuff we got there with all the ex-players and the referees and the scouts and the West Ham coaches and academy directors, and all those old videos that we've got on there, all those old interviews. You can go back and watch them retrospectively as well. Right, I'm going to leave it for that. Tomorrow, I am probably going to be speculating on quite who David Sullivan and Will Salthouse were talking about when they were seen in discussion at the London Stadium at the weekend.